In this tutorial, I'm going to apply these 7 features of showing to this model showing writing essay that was submitted by a former student. And a good place to start would be to point out some of the directions that you'll be asked to follow when you review the guidelines for this first essay, this first major grade of the semester. What you'll see is that you're first asked to select a specific prompt, and in this case, this writer selected this prompt of writing an essay about a time they participated in a hobby, sport, or activity. Then you're next asked to name the specific topic, and in this case, it's a piano recital. And then thirdly, you're asked to name the specific tone that you're trying to convey through your word choices, diction, and through your image-based examples. In this case, the writer's really wanting to connote these attitudes of nervousness, anxiety, tension, intimidation, jitteriness, and stress. At this point in the tutorial, it might be a good idea to hit pause and then just go ahead and read the entirety of the paragraph just so that you can watch as I apply these 7 features of showing. Okay, so now that you've read the paragraph, let's go ahead and start applying these features of showing to the sentences. All right, let's start with images and examples. So in this case, the writer was really trying to make an effort to show examples at this piano recital that really connoted these tone words. So if you go sentence by sentence, you see images like the fingernail scrapes the coarse sheet music, pencil marks suffocate each notes, bow clashes with the string, firing a piercing shriek. And so sentence by sentence, in every sentence, the writer does a very effective job of showing a very specific image-based example that shows these attitudes as they participated or had this experience at this piano recital. The next feature we'll apply is the writer's focus on the concrete and the singular in terms of nouns. And so if you go sentence by sentence, you'll see that this writer does a really effective job of just focusing on nouns that you can see, touch, taste, hear, and smell, fingernail, pencil marks, or I should say pencil marks rather in this case, violin. If you keep going down in these sentences here, the bow, foot, pedal, string, etc. And so again, good sentences, effective sentences tend to focus primarily on the concrete and the singular, and really that comes down to noun use, focusing on really specific singular nouns. And this would be a good time to stress that, you know, the directive isn't, you can never use an abstract noun, you know, but rather the directive is primarily you want to focus on the concrete. You want to focus as much as you can on the singular, the specific. And when you start using a lot of plural abstractions, that should raise a red flag for you, and you should ask yourself, am I being specific enough? And that's the point behind this particular showing writing feature. So next we'll take a look at the writer's use of verbs and really focusing on using active verbs in the present tense and in the active voice. That is, in the active voice, the subject performs the action of the sentence. And so again, sentence by sentence, we see really effective verb use like scrapes, blasted. We see other verbs like clashes. We see verbs like plunges. Pounce. So in every sentence, in this particular assignment, the expectation is that in every sentence, all 10 sentences you execute, you are going to utilize active verbs, really effective animated verbs that show those tone words. Now, how does the writer do with elaboration? This is maybe the most challenging skill that you're going to be asked to work on in this first essay of the year. How well does the writer present an image-based example, and then immediately after that in the next sentence really go to great lengths to elaborate extensively on that image example before they move on to the next one. And so you basically see, if you take a look at the first sentence, the fingernail scrapes the coarse sheet music, clutching the rugged paper as it crackles. And then we see the writer intentionally elaborate on the sheet music. in the next sentence. So we get the initial image, and then we see them elaborate extensively. And then we see them move on to their next example, their next image-based example that shows the tone. Sorry about the bell. You see, slithering down my face, a trail of sweat catches the glare of the beam of light blasted from the rafters. And then you see them elaborate on that image in the next sentence. And so that's going to be your task for this first essay. Can you show us that you can elaborate extensively on every example that you provide before you move on to the new one? So the new example. And so we really should see this repeated pattern of image, elaborate, image, elaborate. And maybe the writer's greatest strength in this particular essay is the use of diction. And if you go, again, sentence by sentence, you can tell that every word was very intentionally chosen to really convey these tone words. Words like scrape, words like suffocate, blasted. If you go further in the paragraph, words like plunges and jolts, attacks, other words like shoot and pounce and firing and piercing, clashes. So being very deliberate with word choice, choosing the right, exact, precise word, not the almost right one, to convey those tone words that you list at the top. And the expectation is in every sentence you show utter precision. Another feature you're asked to practice is really limiting your listing of adjectives and adverbs. But instead, again, this goes back to diction, choosing the right adjectives. And instead of relying on adverbs, maybe using an animated or active verb. And so in these sentences, again, the writer does a really effective job. You see adjectives like rugged, adjectives like piercing shriek, tacky, key grips. And so these are adjectives that are really well selected, not just to describe shallowly, but to really describe intentionally. And what I mean by that is to intentionally use adjectives to show these tone words that you've listed here at the top. And the final feature we're really going to ask you to practice is varying syntax. And this writer does a very good job of varying the way that their sentences look, particularly varying their sentence beginning so that every sentence doesn't look exactly the same. In this case, they begin with my fingernail, adjective, noun. Pencil marks, well, adjective, noun. But then they begin the next sentence with a present participial phrase, which is a structure you're going to learn soon. Then they begin with a noun. Then begin with the past participial phrase. And you can see just by with the eye test, you can see that they're really trying to vary the way their sentences begin and the way their sentences look. And so that's the goal for you, sentence by sentence, in this first essay of the year. Can you show us that you can deliberately vary the beginnings of your sentences, vary the ways that you arrange words in a sentence? And again, I would just kind of use this opportunity to again stress, that we certainly are not saying you can never use like an abstract plural noun. We're not saying you can never use a linking verb. We're not saying you can never use multiple adjectives or an adverb in a sentence. But what we are saying is that sentence to sentence, the challenge for you this year is to be much more deliberate in using these or applying these features in your sentences. Again, if you see that you have 3 of 4 sentences beginning with a linking verb, well, now your task is to try to use a more active verb. So I just wanted to make that clear, that there's no sort of absolute directive here. You can never do this, but the goal is, more often than not, these are the features that we're striving for. So the last comment that I'll make is just to kind of draw your attention to the grading rubric that will be used to assess your own paragraphs. And what you'll see is every skill listed here, diction, verbs, showing concrete, singular details or examples, elaboration, adjective, adverbs, grammar usage, and syntax. Those are all the skills you're going to be held accountable for in these 10 sentences. And then you'll notice too the effort category here. Did you follow the directions? Did you imitate the models? And then when it comes time to revision, for revision I should say, did you make a really concerted attempt to address all of the issues that were pointed out to you by your teacher? So again, the goal here for this first essay of the year is, in 10 sentences, can you show me utter control and precision in 10 sentences? Can you show me in each of these sentences that, yes, I can show you specific image-based examples. I can focus on concrete singular nouns. I can, in 10 sentences, use action verbs and avoid linking verbs. I can elaborate extensively on examples that I give you. I can, in every sentence, use precise diction when it comes to verbs, when it comes to adjectives, and I can limit a listing of ineffective adjectives and adverbs for shallow description, and I can deliberately vary the way that my sentences look. In 10 sentences, can you accomplish that? That's the first essay of the year. That is the challenge with this first major grade.